Hi everybody, MayorBK here, back for another episode of Bay County, Delmarva, and we're going to start the episode back in the city of Franklin. Before we get into the episode, I want to go through a few things that I did off camera. A few minor things I cleaned up. There were some trees on the road from either tree anarchy being on or a glitch that sometimes trees pop through even with anarchy being off on the next load. I've noticed that glitch a little bit. I'm not sure what causes it. Probably the hodgepodge of mods that I have to make Franklin as realistic looking as we can within the game. But either way, I cleaned up, especially this avenue down on the southern side of the city had quite a bit of trees on it. We had some trees popping through the elementary school on the south side, and then some various places throughout the city. So those are all cleaned up. There shouldn't be any trees on the roads anymore. The other thing that I took care of is I started naming the roads and making sure the roads are consistently named through the city. So this road we named in one of the last episodes as Main Street. The square is now named Central Square. And then the road that comes out to the east is now known as East Main Street. So you see this quite frequently in a lot of cities. This street here that goes out to the northeast is now known as Church Street. The other thing I did is made sure that the streets have appropriate distances and make sure they don't loop around on themselves, which sometimes happens in city skylines, especially if we're rebuilding in a specific area like we did in one of the last episodes. So this radial here is Church Street. This road here that comes out to the south of Central Square is known as Port Street, and we will get into that at a later point. That's going to head down towards the port of Franklin. That seems appropriately named. This road here that was our Western Survey Point road is now known as Western Avenue, and that's a nice north-south point. Before we get into the build, I do want to continue a little bit in downtown Franklin and see why this was abandoned. And just that there were no customers, that's a weird one. I think that just is indicating the heavy demand we have on residential, so we have a high demand to grow the city. I think in the last episode I mentioned we detail some of these back parking lot spaces behind Central Square, and haven't done that quite yet, so we'll get to that possibly in this episode. We really have a precedent to expand the city. I do want to take a piece of downtown Franklin, and this may be a good spot here in this weird space that we've created building the church. So let me see what a library looks like. These new search features are nice, especially for a lot of modded games. There's a lot of custom assets and everything. Alright, I don't like that land behind the church. I think it takes up a little too much real estate and dwarfs the church a little bit. I think maybe right in here actually will work nice. Nice vanilla asset, and it's a really nice building. It has a good look. I think it matches our cityscape and our downtown, so I like that quite a bit. And it actually seems to be pretty square with Main Street and Central Square, so that also works. I want to take out the residential buildings here. Put some commercial on this side. I think that works okay. And then this side, we can just build a few parking lots. And for this one, like our elementary school, let me just go back into those new ploppable parking lots and grab some of those. And think that works nice. It gives us a nice little parking spot back there. And then I can just come in here and detail this a little bit and get a couple pedestrian walkways through here and get some landscaping in. Okay, I just went in and added a couple paths. Had a little problem with getting that node to stick right there, but that worked great. A couple parking lots of the smaller ploppable parking lots that were in the latest update about a month ago now. And then just added some trees. These are some of my favorite trees right now. They came with one of the recent updates too, but I like that quite a bit. And just a nice little spot for the library. So this library has an in-game benefit of some education boost as well as a little entertainment value. But the other thing that this even details in the game here is the public library is a cultural institution. It collects books, films, newspapers, documents, and much more. And those are accessible to all the citizens in the city for borrowing in the library system. And that's a lot of times how real libraries work in cities and counties, is collecting the historical archives of that city and county. And this is going to be our public library for the city of Franklin, but also Bay County. I'm going to name it right now as the Franklin Public Library, being the county seat of Bay County. So even though we'll have branch libraries, this is our main library for the county. It does hold the Bay County Historical Archives, and we're going to dive a lot deeper into these historical archives. We're going to start looking into the historical archives with Bartholomew J. Sterrett. And Bartholomew Sterrett was an early 1800s figure in the city of Franklin. He was a businessman and a two-term mayor of Franklin from 1836 to 1844. He was also a third generation born in Franklin. He's the oldest son of one of the founding families. The Sterrett Manor is on the southeast side of Franklin. It features expansive views at the bay, and that is going to be looking out that way on this side of town. The Sterrett family came to Franklin with Bartholomew's great-grandfather, Archibald Sterrett, one of those first families and founders of the city. He purchased the plot of land on the southeast side of town that was a medium plot of land. Eventually, the family under Archibald bought more neighboring properties, and that would eventually become the family estate. And that is one of the final names that I added off camera. This is Sterrett Boulevard. That boulevard on the south side of Franklin that we built in the last episode. That does really well because the family estate is down in this part, and I'll actually go in right now, and I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet, but for now I will just paint it as a park area, just so we remember that this land here is the Sterrett Manor. Bartholomew Sterrett, as I said, was the two-term mayor of Franklin from 1836 to 1844. And one of the things at this point in the city, he was a strong proponent for expanding the city of Franklin. He had goals to create the next Philadelphia, Baltimore, major city on the East Coast. He wanted Franklin to become one of the major industrial cities. He was a staunch opponent of development on the Bay side, however. He did not like the encroachment of the city on his family's estate, so As mayor, Bartholomew Sterrett pushed Franklin's development to the northeast. He supported the development of the first large-scale park, and we built that in the earlier episodes, Franklin Rocks City Park. The land that the city park is on was also part of the Sterrett property, and part of the concession for giving up that rocky outcropping was, one, it wasn't that useful for the family, and it was away from their bayfront views, so it didn't really bother or take away from their views of the bay, but it also helped quiet the voices of the citizens who wanted more recreational options without giving up the bayfront land on the Sterrett estate. We'll get into more of Bartholomew's business and investing and importance as a mayor of the city of Franklin. But for right now, I want to focus on his goals to grow the city of Franklin and expand on the northeast side, on the essentially side that's opposite of his family's property, the least impactful for the Sterrett Manor. Let's get into Bartholomew's plan to expand and push the city further to the northeast. So what I want to do first is go into our unified UI again and go down here to create a parallel road. And what I want to do is work off the highway here to create a parallel road. This tool is a really useful tool in creating parallel networks. You can see here in that box the construction cost of this parallel network. I can change the offset, so how far it is away from the original network that I'm paralleling. And in this case, we want to move this away from the highway, so I'm going to keep hitting equal and moving the offset larger. You can see there's a 37 meter line. That indicates how offset your parallel network is from that original network. If I wanted to, I can shift it to the opposite side by hitting tab. I can go shift and go into underground mode. We're not going to do that right now. I think about 55 meters will be sufficient for this parallel network. So I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to create the parallel network. Now, don't panic. It's a little weird right now. It, I believe, is paralleled the height as well. So you can see here paralleling the bridge structure, but we're not on a bridge, so it looks a little weird right now. But we're going to clean this up a little bit. First, to get out a parallel network tool, and I'm going to go back then into move it and select these nodes again. Okay, that's a long parallel network. Now that I have these nodes selected, I can go into move it and select terrain height. That will drop down quite a bit and give me a road that parallels but is off of the local terrain. Now we still have some cleaning up to do. There's still quite a bit of bumps and things that we can take care of. You can see here it did not do this very well. So we'll take this part here, and I'm gonna do object height now. Select the node I want it to object height at, and that'll take it down here. And that actually might be the way to go, especially through this area right here. Looks a little bumpy. So I'm gonna object height that down to that node. And same thing, I wanna select this node and segment and object height it down to here. To make things just a little bit easier, we'll take the end of this road and actually object height it to this node here at Western Avenue. And that'll bring the selected segments and nodes to the same terrain level as that point right there. Those are going to connect up, so that makes it quite a bit easier. And actually, I will go back into node controller to get those connected up. What I can do here is go to the union nodes mode and select the target. That did okay. I'm actually going to disconnect this road at the moment. because now I'll go to arrange at line and see if we can get a better... Actually, what I'll do first is add a node about halfway between there. That was quite a bit long of a segment without a node. That works pretty good there to curve that. And then what I want to do is take this road here and just connect it into this point right there. I can go back into node controller or the unified UI and see if it'll give me a better curve. I want to make a note here. Eventually this is going to make a good highway connection point right there. And again, I'll take this segment and node and set it to the terrain height for now of this intersection. Looking at this, it actually did something a little weird. So I want to come in here and see if we can nudge us over a little bit. I'll hold the Alt key down, and that helps shift stuff in a little better line. That actually looks a little better right like that. And you can see we're not on the grade of the highway, so that's good. All right, so that gives us a future there that we can build off of. Now, to go into expanding the city, these roads can stay on the current grid. I want to work off of a different grid. I want to orient the city on this side towards the bay. Again, this was a point in the city's growth that citizens wanted a little more access to the bay. They were pushing the mayor at the time, Bartholomew Sterrett, to expand the city into that bay front property and give more recreational options. So this is a good way to do that, is take some of this land on the northeast side of the city and make it suitable for building on. Okay, now what I want to do now that I got those trees cleared out is take a look here, and I want to be back far enough from the water that there's room to grow. So we'll continue. The original city had 20 by 10 grids. We'll start that over here along the water, and we'll see it's probably gonna have to change, but let's get 10 units down and we'll start with 20 over. Now this is where it gets fun, connecting one grid layout into the other. And this point right here is actually where we'll deviate a little bit from that grid pattern. If I put it here, it works, but these two roads are a little close. Let me see, how wide is this? This is 17 units. So yeah, I think going up close to half, about 8 units here, will give enough of a buffer between this road that, even though it's off the highway, it's a parallel road off the highway. So that's definitely going to be a major road. And what I'll do here is get the pipes underneath these roads, and then we can unpause the game, get it going, and start building the new residential and commercial areas on this northeast side of the city. Alright, this is gonna get a little weird down in here. Okay, I like that. That also gives us access. We can spur off this roundabout for possible park access, a waterfront, and it adds a little interest in this part of the city. Right now, this was the part of the city that didn't have a roundabout. I think all the other parts, except down here, I'm still indifferent on if we need a roundabout here or not, or want to keep just a weird intersection. This is all just going to be zoned residential. And really this expansion on the northeast side of Franklin came in two big waves. This section that we're working on right now is the oldest expansion. This part over here by the highway that is a little bit newer of a development. So I like that we have separated the grid a little bit. in these locations and have two unique grid designs, one that predominantly orients towards the water while the other orients more towards the highway. And that also coordinates with this area here on the parallel road for the highway. There's residential here because this road we're going to say was here first versus this road here where it's all commercial. That road came a little later. Just check the districts here, and we need to expand Franklin up to this area here. And then this area here, I want to use my views and turn on zones here. This area is going to get a distinctly new district style. So instead of the commercial brick, I want the North Franklin here along the highway to have our highway commercial. It's a different theme. I'll go into my district styles editor and you can take a look at highway commercial real quick. It has actually a mix of vanilla assets. There's some that are very good for this highway commercial theme. There's some ATMs, some car washes, things like that fit very nice into the theme from the vanilla game, and expansion packs. And then I downloaded a bunch of stuff from the workshop: AutoZone, Bojangles, Burger King, a bunch of your fast food restaurants, Cookout, Dunkin' Donuts, things like that. Pizza Hut, Popeyes, Ralph's. That's going to give a unique style to this, a highway-oriented development style, and unfortunately not as pedestrian of a style. And actually, before we get really rolling here, I do want to come in and just upgrade these roads, because sometimes, like you see here, it does change the zoning a little bit. That's a pretty major road, so I think that's good there. And let me just go in and make sure these are all zoned up with the new zoning. So now I just want to let the game run, and we should be meeting our goals to get to busy town here momentarily. That didn't take much time at all. We've reached busy town. You can see here we get level 4 buildings, sightseeing, trolley buses, oil industry specialization, tourism specialization, a ton of new policies, including encouraging biking, Old Town, and then one of the key things is we get expanded uses of networks, including highways. That's going to be important in growing the rest of Bay County, and also tram roads, bus roads, more options from the big urban roads pack, and then even further expanded city services, parks. We're in good shape here in busy town. That's going to give us a big update to take care of some stuff. And you can see here our population's coming up pretty quickly, which is nice. So while this area fills in even further, let's get going with getting an interchange. And like a lot of things, I have Anarchy on. This is going to look a little ugly to start, but it's going to look really nice here once we get it laid out. And then for highways, we're going to use the North American freeways. We'll get this segment here added to elevated, and that looks better already. Let me come in and make a few adjustments to these nodes. I'm just adding some nodes there. That looks better just like that. Now this is a pretty steep hill, so it looks good on this side, but it's not very great for the height on the other side. So what I want to do is bring this down a little bit, and we'll find a node here that with move it I can page down. And then what I'll do here is get the object height for this node here and set it for all these other nodes in here. So let's take this one. It's gonna be a little tricky with the highway, but we should be able to grab all those. And then object height to the height that I wanted with this node here. So now I can move this whole piece based on this node. And I think I want to page down just another little bit. That looks pretty good. I do want to check the slope a little bit and just see what we have here. I'm not sure that's high enough, but the other thing we can do, since I don't want to go down too much on this road and have too steep of an intersection here, what we can do is take the nodes of our highway on the bridge here and just bump those up a little bit. Let's see what that would look like if we bump it up there. And down on this side, node control and object height, everything to this intersection here. Now we'll just have to do some sloping on this side, which shouldn't be too bad because it's already a highway. I can slope quite a while. And yeah, that's actually a really good slope there, 0.7. I guess that's really just maintaining the slope from the bridge. Yeah, that's just maintaining essentially the same slope from the bridge. So instead of coming down, we've now just elevated it higher across here. So that's why there hasn't been much of a slope difference. That's lucky. This one here then, probably is going to be a little more drastic of a slope. But I can stretch this out a little bit. I think 1.3 works great. That is a nice flat sloped highway. Let's get in our exit lanes. So for these, I just want to come out and get a 90-degree and stretch it out. And see how ugly that looks, but let's see what we can do here. Take our slope tool once again and see what kind of grade we can get. 2.5 isn't too bad, but let me take this back and see if I can get even a better angle and maybe bring it out even a little more. And then now that I know where this exit lane is going to come in, I'm going to add a few of the 3-lane highway to provide an acceleration lane. And we'll come back and make adjustments once I do that for the other exits as well. That one's not as good at 4.3, especially coming into an intersection versus like going up a hill from it. So we'll take that one back even a little further. .3, and it actually keeps flat right here, so that works for me. So pretty simple interchange on this side. I'll get 3 lanes added in here to provide an exit lane. The other side is going to get a little more creative. That looks nice right there. We'll have the exit lanes on here. This is going to be a fun exit lane, and you do find some weird ones in the older parts of cities. Okay, had to make some minor adjustments. We'll just say that's a whoopsie in the game, but I moved that parallel road back just slightly get a better angle on making an exit here onto this highway. Now that I have this highway interchange in, and I think it looks pretty good right now, we're gonna go in and detail this a little bit. So I mentioned earlier that we added proper lane mathematics as lanes have entered the highway. I've added some segments of 3-lane highway. And then same for lanes that are leaving the highway. I've added a couple segments of 3-lane highway before that. And then you can see here in the foreground, lanes go back down to 2. Now this is a standard setup as a vanilla game, but we're gonna make some adjustments, and we can go in with the unified UI tool as well as the node controller. So the first one I wanna make is coming on this exit lane here. You can see the default game, basically any lane segments are added to the center, but we can go with node controller, select this node, and then hold shift while selecting the corners that we want to line up. So if we do that, you can see it just adjusted the lane just a little bit. So now these lanes line up. We've added an exit lane to the proper side like you find on a standard US highway. I can come in here with node controller again, and I can stretch this out to make this even a little smoother. So that looks good there. And then I can come in with the intersection marking tool, select within the node. I can select solid lines. I can select dash lines. For the default, the dashes are a little too close, but I can just come in here in the spacing and just increase the spacing. I'm scrolling with the scroll wheel on my mouse to just increase. And I think 4.5 looks pretty natural compared to the spacing on the node versus off the node. So that looks good. On this one here, I can come in here. Now, a lot of times on US highways, the dashes are closer, ending a highway lane or adding one. So I can just leave that as is. And then this one over here can be a solid line. I know what color matches pretty good for the theme and the temperature of the map and things like that. So that is pretty good. And then once you have this intersection marking tool, you can also create templates and presets, and also copy. So I can copy this whole thing and move it over to another highway node that's similar. You can see I copied it to the other side. The other thing you can see is the merge points. For that, we can go into the traffic manager, and I just want to look here at the nodes and make sure the through lanes are connected to the through lane, so no one's going to cut over from the third lane to the left immediately over to the exit lane, and then we'll just designate the exit lane as going over. It's a little more mandatory here because you'll see the trucks sometimes just come out and cut across. So for me here on the traffic manager, we'll go in here and make sure that cars are staying in their lanes through this exit, and the exit oncoming traffic are staying in their designated on-ramp lane. And then all these nodes will have to be cleaned up. So I'm gonna go through and clean them up real quick, and then we can come back and take a look at the finished interchange. While I'm working on the interchange nodes and the markings, our park at Franklin Rocks has upgraded, so we now have access to gazebos. Those are going to be helpful in not only that park, but also other parks as we continue expanding Franklin and Bay County. Okay, these are all aligned properly and marked up. There's a couple corrections I want to make, just mostly down here. This bridge is an amazing bridge. It's created custom by the L train when they created the map. We added a few of these 3-lane pieces in here. I just want to go into the nodes of the bridge here and just bump them out just a bit. That looks pretty good. I just bumped those out just a little bit and trimmed them back a little bit so they don't interfere with this one. And then this one, this node here can also get node controlled. That way we have proper exit lane headed off that way. So those are good. I just need to do the other side and just node control those up and then copy the template. Bump those curves back just a tiny bit, just to give a little wider median in the road. And that's fine to have a closer gap there a little bit. In fact, I'll go into Surface Painter and just gravel up from the bridge there. So yeah, I think that works great right there. All right, well that does it for this episode. We've completed this interchange that provides Franklin with direct highway access, so that's a very nice thing. And then we've added quite a bit of expansion into the city and have almost 6,000 residents. You do see there's a little bit of a power issue over here. And I just want to check the budget. We hadn't done that much this episode. Just go into the budget Our power, we could use a little more power pretty soon. So we do have to start thinking about that. For now, I'm just gonna bump the power up a little bit to 125, and that should give us enough boost for power. So to recap this episode, we've completed a North Franklin interchange that gives the city direct access to the highway. And then we've expanded the city quite significantly to the north and to the northeast towards the bay. This was away from the Sterrett family estate that we've learned about and set a location for here on the south side of town. And now that we have a library constructed, we have access to Bay County's historical archives that are going to go a lot deeper into the history and a lot of the characters that have made Bay County what it is. But I think this is a great stopping point here now that we head towards our next milestone, which isn't that far away, Big Town. Thanks for watching, and we'll leave here with a cinematic view